Talofa, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Swiswiki. Coming up.
This time, people have seen that the current government is the most corrupt.
A Bougainville politician wants a new approach to independence also.
They set up a stable coin which was linked to a tap and pay card, and that allowed them to get aid into people.
Crypto world reaching the Pacific Islands and a photographer's poetic journey in PNG. Longtime Bougainville politician Joe Lira wants to see widespread changes in the way the autonomous government runs. The Papua New Guinea region, which is chasing independence from Port Moresby, is holding elections in the first week of September. 7 are running for president, including Mr. Lira. He held the regional seats in the national parliaments for 10 years before resigning to contest the presidency in the last election in 2020. This time round, Lira is campaigning on what he sees as faults in the approach of the Ishmael Torawama administration, and told Don Wiseman he's offering a different tack.
This time, people have seen that the current government is the most corrupt. They have addressed only one side of independence, which is the political side. The other two sides, they have not done it very well.
What do we mean by that? We can't bandy around words like corruption. What do you mean by corruption?
Corruption is huge. They are putting public funds into personal members' accounts, like the constituency grant, 360,000 a year.
As someone who has operated in the National Parliament, you know that that is done there as well. So it's not corrupt necessarily, is it?
Well, you know, when it goes into their personal account, they use it for their own family good. and that development, it should supposed to be development funds. So the people are not seeing the tangible outcomes in the number 2 side, which is the development side. All the roads are bad. The hospitals are now running out of drugs. Doctors are checking the patients, sending them to pharmaceutical shops to buy the medicine because the hospitals have run out.
These are problems that are affecting the entire country, aren't they? And there's a shortage of money. So how would you solve it? What would you do differently?
We will we'll try to make big changes in addressing sustainable development in agriculture, fishing, forestry, so we can create jobs for the small people. Instead of talking about big billion-dollar mining projects, which will take a long time. We should start with what we already have and develop and create opportunities for the people to be engaged in nation building through sustainable development first. Then we progress into the higher billion-dollar projects. Now we are talking about mining when the people don't have opportunity and they are getting poorer and poorer. That's one area. The other area, to create change, we will try to fix the government structure, from ABC to community governments to village assemblies down to the chiefs. At the moment, the policies they have fragmented the conduit of getting the services from the top government down to the village people.
Okay. In the past, you've spoken out against the push for independence, suggesting, I think, that Bougainville's not ready yet and it should take its time. Where do you stand at the moment on the independence question?
The independence question, we are all for it. I'm not against it, but I'm against the process, how they are going about it. I think the answer has been already given in the Bougainville Peace Agreement, which is a joint creation between the PNG and ABC government. And the process is very clear. Now, what the current government is doing is they are going outside of the peace agreement and they are trying to shortcut based on the result. But the peace agreement doesn't say independence will be given to us based on the result. What it says is after we know the result, the two governments must continue to dialogue, consult each other, and find ways of how to improve the economy, the law and order issues, the development issues. When we fix those, that nation-building pillars, we can then apply for the ratification to take place.
All right. So you're talking about something that would be quite a way further down the line than what this current government is talking about.
Yeah, the issue is timing. They are putting deadlines themselves, and they are trying to push the PNC government to swallow it. PNC government is a sovereign nation already. We should respect and honestly, in a family room situation, negotiate, talk with them, as the peace agreement says, and reach understanding on the timing and other related issues. But not to even take a confrontational approach, which is what they are doing now, but take a family room approach where we sit and negotiate in the spirit of the peace agreement.
An Australian finance director has flown to Nauru with ambitions to turn it into the crypto powerhouse of the Pacific. Brian Phelps will head up the Command Ridge Virtual Asset Authority, making Nauru the first Pacific Island country to regulate digital assets. This comes as world nations begin to bring cryptocurrencies into their own special legal frameworks with the aim of making them more stable. Mr. Phelps spoke with Kyan Selby, who asked him why the crypto world is turning to the islands.
It's possibly the other way around. I think you probably find that it's the island nations who are engaging with the digital world, in some instances for the first time, but you'd be surprised. There are a number of programs running there at the moment. So, for instance, in Palau, they're developing a digital residency program and a stablecoin program in that country, and that's pegged to the US dollar, and that's for cross-border transactions. And Fiji and I think Vanuatu as well, they've been investing in opportunities around a central bank digital currency, which is playing out here in Australia and other jurisdictions. And some other ways it's used too is I noted that Oxfam have been working with the government of Vanuatu, and when they had some problems in Vanuatu with the earthquake and whatnot, they set up a stable coin which was linked to a tap and pay card, and that allowed them to get aid into people that otherwise would be difficult if you were just trying to hand out currency and the like. So schemes like that are all designed to sort of support communities, and I think the way we're thinking in Nauru is, well, we need to create other new and interesting and innovative opportunities to support the economy, and we're looking into ways of doing that. I think other ways to do it too is things like digital remittance. So you've probably heard of Western Union and businesses like that. I have a view that Nauru could become, a remittance payment provider for itinerant workers throughout the Pacific who would like to send money home. And a safe, secure means of doing that now is through things like a stablecoin. I think, so to your question, I think it's the Pacific looking to engage with digital and potentially with crypto and other assets.
Right. So you want to put as part of because I suppose it's virgin territory, right? We're talking about something which is very new and it could be applied in many ways. And one of the ways it could possibly be applied is Nauru is put at the center of remittance collection from across the world for the Pacific. Is that what you mean?
That's one example, right? These things are literally, as you say, virgin territory. So these things are in the pipeline, and these are the things we're thinking about. The other is to create an environment where crypto can be exchanged and potentially about an exchange and capability for the Pacific and other regions to come and operate. But in order to do that, we need to do it properly. So we need to build trust with neighbours and global partners if we want to operate in this space. I need to have the appropriate oversight in place. So it'll be my job to stay in regulatory terms on top of our obligations and make sure we do all our compliance guidelines. Every time, not just sometimes, every time. We want to build Nauru up as a trusted hub or partner to do business with. I think the benefits of doing that aren't just digital. What happens for Nauru then is that becoming a trusted partner in the digital space also brings new and different opportunities where others may look to invest further in Nauru, maybe in infrastructure or some of that nature as well. So this is the mandate I've been given by the Parliament in Nauru is to build up a trusted digital platform for Nauru.
48 years ago, a young New Zealand photographer took herself off on a brief solo journey into the remote Papua New Highlands. Victoria Ginn is now in her 70s and has a gallery in the little Taranaki town of Normanby. The trip to PNG was the first of a series of exotic trips she made and gave her a remarkable collection of photographs of the indigenous people, which she has called a welcome adventure. Victoria Ginn spoke with Don Wiseman.
So when you were 23 years old and I guess, fairly inexperienced photographer, you took yourself off on your own into the Papua New Guinea highlands. Why did you do that?
Well, I probably wasn't as inexperienced as you state. I began photography when I was about 14 years old in the 1960s after a friend of mine realized I could take good photographs, and he gave me his Leica camera. And I self-taught, and I was interested in human culture and nature right from day dot, really. Why I took myself into the Papua New Guinea highlands at the age of 23, probably a yearning to connect with a deeper part of my own self and also a deeper part of the human culture than was represented in my own modern culture in terms of 1970s modern Melbourne, Australia, and that sort of system. I was probably a natural photographer in terms of my yearning to use a camera as a way to connect with people. It's a form of connection, photography, or was. Nowadays, it's a form of intrusion and narcissism. But back then, it was an art form, and it mesmerized me to know that you could translate a moment in reality into something that was a beautiful essence of somebody through black and white portraiture and a moment in time, where you saw an emotion or an expression or a sense of the self that was portrayed in another person. It was never intrusive photography. When photography became fashionable in the 1970s, art photography became fashionable in the 1970s through the production of a book by Diane Arbus, and everyone had to be a photographer sort of thing. But photography became, in a way, it became corrupted by wide-angle lenses and people not realizing the sensitivity of the other, meaning the subject. And a lot of deceitful photography happened that was calling itself art photography at that time.
It's still very difficult on a number of levels to access the Papua New Guinea highlands. But in 1977, and on your own, it would have been very, very difficult.
Yes, it was. It was. But I was an adventurer. I enjoyed the attraction of the unknown and the challenge of finding a way into an area of such remoteness in the world where there was not a pollution of modernity, if you like, upon the peoples that I wanted to meet. So yes, it was difficult. It was basically busing up the highlands into the highlands and then finding ways to get around. And I did have some fairly hairy encounters, not with the local people, but with imported construction managers and things like people like that from Australia. Papua New Guinea was only 2 years into its independence at that time, so there was still a very raw aspect to the confusion between what was meant to be and what was, where you have an imported psyche like the Australian mentality wanting to civilize and develop a country, and you had the indigenous people who had stayed sane and intact and culturally together and had a very rich, beautiful culture that was kind of timeless.
How did you communicate?
That's an interesting one because I discovered the art of nonverbal communication, and it sounds stupid or nonsensical, but there is a way. I developed it later when I was traveling through other remote regions of the South Pacific and Southeast Asia, particularly. There's a way to communicate that doesn't require speech in terms of your tongue. And it becomes a very basic, essential means of communication, which involves gesture, but it also involves something that is unspoken, and it's very difficult to describe that. And you connect. It's about someone connecting to you and you connecting to them on a level that's not cerebral, and it's not through your tongue, so not through speech. And I used that method. It grew on me. It developed. I wasn't there long enough to become adept at that sort of thing, but I got a taste of it, and I learnt how you can communicate without language. And I've spent time in a lot of different cultures using that means.
This happened back in 1977, so 48 years ago. Why is it taking you so long to bring a book out?
I've gone backwards looking at my work in a way. I'm going backwards. I'm in my 70s now. And I mean, I've had other work that propelled me to do other creative essays that I was prompted to do by my own artistry. And that has come to an end. I'm no longer a photographer. So I'm more a writer now. And I am looking backwards and tidying up my life, you could say. And it's a beautiful little essay. It's a very poetic essay which portrays a form of gentleness, contrary to what is happening in Papua New Guinea today. And it's a counterbalance to what is occurring in the highlands today, which is now a lawless place where people have had their essential culture stripped from them by the incursion of missionaries and what have you, and mining companies and so on. It's a counterbalance. It gives voice to a portrait of a people.
You've visited a number of places, as you say, remote areas around the Pacific particularly. Where does this adventure into the PNG Highlands in 1977 sit?
That's a hard one. I think the last big work I did in the South Pacific and Southeast Asia was called The Spirited Earth, which was subtitled Dance, Myth and Ritual from South Asia to the South Pacific, which was a philosophical look at the religious and spiritual forms of expression through performance art and ritual in those regions, mostly colour photography. Back in 77, you could say this was a stepping stone to my awareness of the depth of understanding of the spiritual aspects of the human psyche within a people that were so-called prehistoric and primitive. It's candid work. It's more portraiture in terms of face rather than form or body, which my book, The Spirited Earth, looks at the complete picture of face and form and body and environment. This is mainly a portrait, and it's a poetic portrait, which involves the poetry of the people, but also the more prosaic sort of day-to-day, here am I sitting in a marketplace, or here am I pulling my bow and arrow, carrying my grasses from the fields and so on. It's more a documentary portrait than an artistic portrait, but it contains artistry, of course.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.